inside the council hall of the German city of Hamburg. This is one of the most important cities in Germany and state in particular, with a GDP of at least 85 billion euros. Germany, in the days ahead, will be going to the polls to choose a new federal chancellor. But life here remains one of the most dynamic places in German society. What does it take to be in the German state of Hamburg, and how does that contribute to the global economy? My guest today on GLOBEWATCH is one of the rising stars of the German female political elite, who is a member of the Green Party and sits inside this building as one of the top policy makers. Katharina Fegebank, welcome to GLOBEWATCH.
Hello, thank you for having me on your show.
Well, across the world, when you talk of Germany, you talk of Leipzig, you talk of Berlin, you talk of Bonn, you talk of all these great cities. Amongst them is Hamburg.
Yeah.
How special and unique is Hamburg in Germany?
Hamburg is a very special city. It's the second biggest, right after Berlin. We have 1.8 million inhabitants, and it's growing and growing. So economic growth and very good economic situation is actually one aspect that makes life very livable here in Hamburg. And of course you have facts and figures, but then you have a special air of liberty, of openness, of tolerance. We go back to a very interesting history. And of course we have the port, we have the Elbphilharmonie, maybe you know the Reeperbahn as a fun district we have. But also there are many other things you can refer to, like places like the River Elbe or the Lake Ulster. And people are very, very loving and caring and motivated to show tourists from all over the world the places. So it is a very special place indeed. And we have more and more tourists every year. I think last year we had like 12.5 million overnight stays. And right after Berlin, we're the second biggest place in Germany, located in northern Germany. It's not far to go to the Baltic Sea or to the North Sea. And of course, due to our big port, we are a kind of gateway to the world. And this is like our historical heritage.
Well, you just spoke about the port, and I have spent at least 5 days in Germany, and basically every document I've read about Hamburg makes reference to the port of Hamburg, which of course is the second most important in continental Europe, and just behind you is a semblance of the port. Just how strategic is the port of Hamburg to the survival of this economy?
The port is very important, and of course it is a point of identification for all the people in Hamburg, and it's a main attraction for all the people coming to see the beauty of the city. But part of the economic powerhouse Hamburg is the activities you find in and around the port when it comes to containers, when it comes to logistics, when it comes to digitalization activities. You have the port in the center. But of course there is much more to Hamburg. Like we are in the process of bringing Hamburg more.
At least 9.3 million tons of goods a year, connecting some 168 countries, and
we have trade.
producing at least 136 billion euros yearly to the city's economy.
Yeah, a lot. It is definitely one part of being Hamburg an economic powerhouse, but there's a lot more to it. Being the point of identification for the people, all the tourists go there and take a look at the beautiful waterfront and the port. But of course we want to be a science metropolis as well. We want to build a lot of new flats because the the population is growing.
Just 30 seconds. How much in revenue in particular does the city council where you serve and you are an authority, how much do you gain from
I can't give
the
you the numbers. I think it's a fifth or maybe between 10 and 20% of the revenues we have.
You kept on saying that Hamburg is a very historic site and city in the German history, and of course it's one of the original 16 states of Germany before the 1871 unification of Germany. Just situate to me the historicity of this place in the German society.
First of all, Hamburg has always been a free city. Hamburg was never governed by any king or duke or whatever. So
the Saxons and also.
Hamburg has always been a free republic, so to say. So people here are very independent, they like their freedom, and at the same time they are very open-minded, very tolerant, very international. I think these are some of the main assets or criteria when you start describing Hamburg and the people who live here. And our history goes back as a city to the 9th century, and we've always been part of the Hanse, the Hanseatic Merchants Association, doing trade at a very, very early stage, like trading goods via streets, but also via the River Elbe. That was always a benefit.
The River Elbe, which is one of the most important rivers in Germany.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it is definitely one of the main rivers, and it was main transport street or main transport route we have. So that definitely makes Hamburg a very special place in Germany.
Madam Mayor, to an ordinary citizen of the world, including my Cameroonian audience, what is the meaning of Hamburg?
Hamburg, it goes back to a castle, Hammerburg, which was located right like a stone throw from here. That is the Hammerburg, and this is where the name Hamburg comes from.
Okay.
The castle.
Tell me about the tourism potential of this city found in the northern part of Germany.
There's a huge potential. It's been growing over the last years, and the city and of course the metropolis region have become more and more attractive over the last years. And only this year in January we opened like the huge concert hall you might have heard of. It's the Elbphilharmonie. It's well worth going there, either to go and take a look from the plaza. You get a wonderful view of the port and of the skyline of this city, and you have the best concerts, the best musicians, the best conductors you can imagine, from the classical to rock to jazz, and they will all be performing there. And that really, really attracts a lot of people from all over the world coming here, and it has definitely put, if it's not had been before, it has definitely put Hamburg on the world map of a really vibrant cultural metropolis, definitely. So, and as I just said, I think last year we had like 12.5 million overnight stays. We do have a lot of congresses, scientific congresses. We have like the CCH, which is a center where all the congresses, conferences take place, and we have many hotels hosting those conferences, and of course people traveling individually.
Such events could put pressure on city leadership. I just wonder what could be the main challenges facing a multicultural community like yours, which of course have at least 71% of its inhabitants being Germans of origins, at least 14% European, about 5% Africans, and about 6 or 2% roughly of that nature Asians. What are the key challenges facing the city of Hamburg today?
I would go even further. If you take all the kids aged 10, every second of them has a non-German background, either because they immigrated a few months ago, or they came in their parents' or grandparents' generation. So every second child living in Hamburg at the age of 10 has a migratory background. So that, of course, makes the city very special, very multicultural, multi-religious, of course very international, and this is the way we shape like state and Hamburg policies and politics. And of course the city is growing. There are more and more inhabitants coming. In the 2030s there will be around about 2 million people, and now we have 1.8 million inhabitants, so there will be 200,000 people coming over the next maybe 10, 15, 20 years. And that challenges us in the way we build our apartments, for instance. At the same time, Hamburg is a very green city, and we want to keep the parks, we want to keep the forests, we want to keep the natural reserve areas. And of course, one of the main challenges is education from a very early stage. We want to provide all young kids from the age of 1 year onwards with a kindergarten place, and then of course all schools have to get ready, and most of them are ready already, to actually deal with different backgrounds, with different levels of knowledge and competences. And then of course going to the labor market, getting the universities ready for diversity, and so on and so forth. These are some of the major challenges we are facing.
You just spoke about education, and you are the senator here in charge of innovation, science and technology. What are the key innovations you are bringing to make this domain more livable and more likable? What the economics intelligence unit just described Hamburg as one of the most top 10 livable places in the world.
Yeah, because that's one of the most important challenges. You just mentioned the port several times. And on the one hand, it's a point of identification. On the other hand, we have to move forward. And it's not just the port saving our future, because it will be science, it will be our universities, it will be our outer university institutions where a lot of excellent world-class research are being carried out. And of course, it's the fact that we want to have transfer technology. We want to have the ideas from the scientists and from the students, and we want to put them into practice, into products, into action. And you can do that either in a maritime context. We are doing very well in the aviation context, looking at Airbus, looking at Lufthansa, etc. We are after Seattle and Toulouse the third place in the world concerning aviation. Of course, we do have very strong natural sciences. We have a research campus in Bahrenfeld, where the European X-Fair will be starting in September. That's like the brightest X-rays you can imagine. And top-class scientists from all over the world will be here to do their research. So talking about it, bringing community and scientists together, and really gain a lot of future potential from the field of science, technology and new innovation, because they create new jobs, and they make the future, make Hamburg livable in the future.
Well, this interview will be coming to an end very soon. I just wonder how this place is governed, since you said that it is a multi-racial, a multi-religious, a multicultural community. Just give me a sense of how this place is governed, which of course has survived with the history of a free state in a Germany with a very turbulent history. You know the history of Germany, right? World War I, World War II, destruction, the fire of Hamburg and others.
That's why you need a very stable government, and as we have a parliamentary democracy in Germany on a federal level, we also have the same system in all our 16 states. And Hamburg is one of the 16 states we have in Germany. So we have a parliamentarian democracy. People vote for parties, and of course the people representing the parties. And in Hamburg we have a coalition formed of the Social Democrats and the Green Party. I'm a member of the Green Party, a second mayor or first mayor, Olaf Scholz. He represents the Social Democrats, and we have been governing the city now for 2 years and a few months, and I consider the government as very stable and very much future-oriented when it comes to the key challenges we are facing.
Well, you just mentioned about how the place is governed, and that reminds me of elections which were held in one of the most important region, which is like the core of your coalition today, where the candidate for the SDP running for the general elections in September comes from former President of the European Union Parliament, Martin Schulz. I just wonder to know from you how much of that defeat was a blow to your political spinal cord as you head for elections months from now.
You mean
The
concerning
elections
to Hamburg?
I mean the coalition which you belong, which hopes to
Yeah,
govern.
but we're being elected for 5 years. So we had elections 2 years ago, and the next elections will be in 2020.
You are aiming,
2020.
the grand coalition in which you belong is aiming probably to come to power in September, and I would
We will see.
Chancellor Angela Merkel. Is that possible?
I don't know. It's still 4 more months to go, and as we all know from previous elections, the main things they happen in the weeks before, right before the elections take place. So I think our federal government, they do a solid job, and we will see what's going to happen. I of course keep my fingers crossed for the Green Party to be very successful.
Okay, one but last question. You just told me in the course of this interview that this is a multi-religious society. Of recent, terrorism has been a very disturbing factor here in Germany, and I just wonder how you manage with this multicultural society where especially the populist movement is instilling fear amongst people from a certain background.
Of course, that is a major challenge, and we start at a very early stage in our schools. We have like prevention programs when it comes to, for instance, young people being attracted by the IS, being talked to by Islamic groups who might be fundamental or extremist groups. So we have like prevention programs in our schools, and of course in cooperation with the other states when we are in power also or in opposition, we have launched several security packages trying to tackle all issues concerning terrorism and the fight against terrorism. But then again, I'm a big fan of human rights, and I'm a big fan of refugee rights, and I don't want the security issues being mixed with refugee issues and questioning human rights. So you have to have a clear guideline that if you want to strengthen the security laws and acts, you have to do it, but you have to leave out the individual right of asylum, and of course you should not question any kind of human rights being guaranteed by our constitution.
Okay, Madam Mayor, you are going to take the last question and we separate because I know your timetable is very complicated. Hamburg is described by many as Germany's gateway to the world. A few days ahead, President Donald Trump and others will be here for the G20 summit. How is Hamburg preparing for that important international rendezvous, which of course will be receiving the newly elected American president for the very first time?
Yeah. Thank you for that last question. You can be sure that we are preparing a lot, and that we spend a lot of time in thorough preparations for the G20 summit taking place in the beginning of July. Of course, on the one hand, we will be hosting state leaders and presidents from the G20 and their people who accompany them. And on the other hand, we have to guarantee the right to protest and to demonstrate peacefully, and to bring that together, taking into consideration that all the delegations will arrive with like 200, 300, 400, even more people. We have to handle it in a good way and in a logistical, sensible way, and at the same time give the people who come here to protest and who want to address their worries and concerns about the policies of those presidents, give them a room too. but it has to be peacefully.
What will you tell any of the leaders in particular?
Pardon?
If you meet one of the leaders, what will you tell the person?
I won't, so I don't have to worry about that question.
Okay. The second mayor of the city of Hamburg, Katharina Fegebank. Thank you very much indeed for being guest on GlobeWatch on the Cameroon Radio Television.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Professionals are still putting that on the market, and one major critic says that this is the work of guys from the commercial department because we cannot do it.
Ultimately, it doesn't need to be a commercial interest because journalists, you're a journalist yourself, are you not naturally...
Maybe the notion of public interest is quite different in the US or in the developed world and in the developing countries.
Well, I can't speak to that, but are you not as a journalist naturally curious about these things? And that natural curiosity is what drives stories like that. And unfortunately, yes, they can have a detrimental effect, but it's down to news organizations to be responsible and to look at that information that they may be gifted by someone like Snowden or Assange and use it responsibly, you know, and any news organization that doesn't is abusing their position and their platform. But ultimately, I believe that, you know, the realm of news journalism have a place for investigatory journalism. The New York Times has some fundamentally brilliant journalists who occupy that space, and as do other news organizations globally. And that will always be a central tenet of any great news brand, I think. So it's not a commercial point. Ultimately, if you're interested in it and you're a journalist and you discover a story, it is your responsibility to go after it and find it out and then decide at that point whether it's in the public interest. It's not my job as a commercial man. I won't actually ever be able to encash or develop revenue off your story. I will develop revenue off the credibility that you bring to my newspaper.
How is life at the New York Times since Mark Thompson, the former Director General of the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, came in as Managing Director?
He's a fantastic leader and a visionary, and I look forward to working with him over the next many years. I think we're going from strength to strength.
And this question, on September 8, 2010, Arthur Zulberger Jr., chairman and publisher of the New York Times, told an international news summit in London, quote, "We will stop printing the New York Times sometime in the future." That goes back to the question I asked you about the future of the newspaper industry. When will the hard copy of New York Times go off the sales? Meaning, when will you stop doing hard copy editorials for the New York Times?
Well, that's a very high-level strategic question, which my own position would not be able to answer directly. I suppose I can speak in a more generalist manner. I think you know, newspapers will stop printing on paper. You know, and I broadly define those two. The news will always be important
because technology is not on their side. Technology is not on the side of the hard copy.
Exactly, but my point here is you're defining the platform rather than the importance of content. The news itself is what's important. How you read it is down to your desire as the consumer. It's our job to make sure that you can get the news any way you need, be it on mobile, on iPad, on you know, on a newspaper. And I imagine in the future from now, 30 years from now, we'll be putting it on a whole array of new platforms. I don't even know what to imagine of it, but I imagine we will need to be there. And that's our responsibility as a news organization. So it isn't about the decline or removing paper news from the agenda. It's about understanding what our consumers need, what people need to read their news on.
Walter Pace, the New York Times Commercial Director for the Middle East and Africa. Thanks very much for accepting to be guest on our program.